My dear brothers, on this evening, this man night, want to offer a few words for your reflection as we meditate upon how we are to establish like Elijah. First of all, to establish something, whether it is to establish a marriage, to establish a family, to establish a business, one requires a vision of what you want. Elijah sees the need to reestablish the sovereignty of God within the Israelite nation, and he confronts the prophets of Baal. But before doing that, he has a vision of what the Lord wants and what he wants within his own heart. And so too all of us must have a clear idea, it seems to me, as to what we want. We talk about the desire to strengthen our marriages, to strengthen our friendships, to strengthen our families. But what does it really look like? What do we want it to look like? And this question, brothers, about what we want does matter. The discernment of what the Lord is asking us to do requires our own freedom to choose what we desire, because oftentimes the Lord puts the answer precisely within our heart. Sometimes young people, I know I've shared this before, will come to me to discern their vocation. Sometimes the best answer is to, what is God telling me to do, is, what do you want to do, kid? What do you want to do? Because the Lord allows an awful lot of latitude. So, what do you want your marriage to look like? What do you want your family to look like? What do you want your place of business to look like? What do you want your parish to look like? And what do you, as a parishioner within that parish, how do you want to be within that community? Obviously, this presumes goodwill, a desire for heroism, a desire to do what is right. But brothers, I encourage you tonight before the Eucharistic Lord to think for yourself. What do you want? What is the vision that you want to reach for? And once you have that vision of a holy marriage, of a holy family, of a holy workplace within which you are found, how will you fight for it? So the first meditation point, what do I want? What is a godly desire within me? The second is, am I willing to fight for it? In the book of Genesis, after the fall, Eve is told that from now on to give birth will require great suffering. Everything of lasting goodness, it seems to me, will require struggle, will require effort, will require a commitment to fight for it. Jesus says that no builder begins building a tower without first establishing that he can do it. And part of that establishing that he can do it is a commitment to fight for it. Conflict is part of establishing something. Are we willing to fight for it? In the case of our marriage, are we willing to sacrifice our time to be with our spouse? Are we willing to pray for our family? Are we willing to give up what we really like to do to be a better example? Are we willing to fight? Without fight, without a willingness to endure and to embrace conflict, there is no triumph, no victory. Only a life of mediocrity, no establishment. We must see, we must fight for, and we must defend. Once it is that we have established what we are seeking, to be aware that it's not a one-time triumph, coming home from a man's night full of wonderful resolutions about how you're going to be a better dad and father. That'll last you about 1 week. Then you have to get down to the brass tacks of day in, day out, being committed to the long game, defending the establishment of a marriage, of a family, of a parish, of a workplace, of a business, requires not only a fight to establish it, but then a willingness to defend it. A willingness to constantly be a man of prayer, to be vigilant against the attacks against it, to be vigilant against our own weaknesses, not to put ourselves in the occasions of sin, to defend it. Finally, we must love what we have established as stewards. Far too often, we think of the goods in our life, marriage, family, our job. These are things that we have earned by our own sweat of our brow, by our own good decisions, to a point, but they're also gifts given by God. Gifts given by the Lord that we are obligated to be stewards of. The gifts of our family, of our children, of our wives, of our friends, of our brothers, gifts given by God. Do we see ourselves as stewards of these gifts? A man who establishes his property, establishes land, tends to it as a steward of the gift from God. In a similar way, one who is seeking to establish a marriage rooted in the Lord, rooted in the teachings of the church, rooted in true manly heroicism, must see the gift of his marriage as just that, a gift that must be celebrated and enjoyed and watched over as a tender, precious, sometimes fragile thing. We must see, we must fight for, we must defend, we must be stewards. Most of all, brothers, I ask us this evening to consider, how will we establish a life of prayer, a life of virtue? What do we want our lives as Christian men to look like? Are we willing to fight for it? Are we willing to defend it, mostly by banding together? Are we willing to see the gift of faith as stewards given to us by a loving Father who wants us to watch over this gift and to fan it into flame?